I think we just start with however you just started today on our podcast. How do you set boundaries to avoid overwhelm? You literally just do that every
Yes.
time when you feel yourself getting into overwhelm because it it gets the heart connected to the head, connected to the soul, connected to the being. Ah, there you go. That's
Yeah, absolutely. Connect to your heart. And that's a beautiful way to start this because that is a boundary that you can energetically have. I am not going to get involved in any kind of um, conversation or project or have to or to-do list before I connect with my own soul energy, my own loving heart.
Debz is a stressologist. She will stretch your mindset to think bigger than you've ever thought before, with follow-through techniques that are realistic and achievable to blow any fear out of your mind. Moira is a mindset cultivator. She will help you align your personal trinity of self-trust, inner awareness, and self-confidence so that you discover and share your unique gifts and purpose. Together, their goal with these conversations is to share how our inclinations do not always work in our best interest and to provide the knowledge to leverage the gifts that already exist within each one of us. Their desire is to help you learn how to access the habits and behaviors that will lead to positive change and your best quality of life. Welcome to your deliciously motivated mindset.
Welcome, dear listeners. Welcome, dear Deb.
hi.
Hello, my dear. Welcome to another one of our deliciously motivated mindset podcast conversation interactions. I don't know what to call them. It's a podcast and it's a conversation. This week's topic, I'm looking forward to our conversation today because this one, and actually we're talking about an area that Deb doesn't really like talking about. But it's all about setting boundaries. So we're going to talk about how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. Or maybe we should have said to avoid discombobulation, but that's another part. So we changed things up recently. We used to start off our conversations by doing a check-in physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. And I do hope you're still doing them because that's an important piece to keep doing. I do
I
them
am.
often.
I am.
Deb
I am.
is, Deb is, I am.
I am. Phew.
But what we've been kind of integrating more into this is what I like to think of as heart coherence. And what this is to just really steep yourself in the energy. We are all connected. Energetically, we are all connected. And so this is just a simple process to, number one, feel yourself in your body and get grounded and present. And then I'm going to talk you through feeling yourself in your heart space and then allow yourself to set the intention to connect energetically with all beings on this planet. And it's just a way of feeling into and leaning into that loving support and sharing it. So, all that being said, what I encourage you to do, if you can, close your eyes gently. Don't do that if you're driving.
Hard for me to laugh.
We
We don't want that.
don't want that. But just gently place your hand, one hand or both hands over your heart, and take a few deep breaths, really deep. Feel it expand your chest, expand your belly, and breathe out. Long, slow out breath. Feel yourself landing into this moment. And as you take another deep breath in, feel your feet wherever they are resting. Feel your feet anchoring yourself onto this planet, in this space, in this time. And now, because you've got one hand or both hands over your heart, I'd like you to really exaggerate that expansion and contraction of your heart space. Make it feel like, as best you can, like you're breathing in and out of your heart space. Letting that nurture you and fill you up and remind you of the sacredness of you as you allow yourself to be filled with prana, with life force energy. And then on your out breath, intend that you can send a beam or a stream or a ribbon of colored light, whatever color resonates with you, that encircles the entire planet. And it doesn't matter when you're doing this, it's about intentionality. And as you're sending out your compassion, your kindness, your love, and then breathing it back in, requesting for any kind of soothing or grounding or nurturing, balancing energy, requesting that back in, filling your heart. And as we continue doing these types of exercises, we're actually creating like an energetic, loving blanket that we can all come back into. And all you have to do to come back into is remind yourself that it's there. Put your hand on your heart and breathe back in, and it's right there. Nice deep breath. And so if you had your eyes closed, you can gently open them. But now, after that simple heart coherence, connecting our energies, now we're going to start having our conversation about how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm.
I think we just start with however you just started today on our podcast. How do you set boundaries to avoid overwhelm? You literally just do that every
Yes.
time when you're feeling yourself getting into overwhelm, because it gets the heart connected to the head, connected to the soul, connected to the being. There you go. That's
Yeah, absolutely. Connect to your heart. And that's a beautiful way to start this, because that is a boundary that you can energetically have. I am not going to get involved in any kind of conversation or project or have to or to-do list before I connect with my own soul energy, my own loving heart. And of course, I actually do forms of that type of exercise that I just took you through on Insight Timer. And I often say to them, we don't have to keep doing it, but it feels good to do it. And we do need reminders, because once you connect your energetic, stream, beam, loving light, whatever you want to think of that, once it's there, it's there. But why we do the reminder is for our head. It's we need to be reminded, oh right, that's right, there's this technique, and all I have to do is put my hand over my heart and I'm
well,
supported.
even when we say put a hand on our heart, and to me it's so simple, put your hand on your heart, but sometimes you just can't even think of what to do.
Yes.
That's that. And it just slows down, it slows everything down. It just gets us going, okay.
It
What's
calms
important?
your nervous system. That's really what right?
Yeah, and it makes us go, what's important to me right now? So, that's the other thing, is how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm, not overwhelm. Same thing, discombobulation.
Yep.
Is what is it you're looking for? What's your desired outcome?
That's a really important point all of itself, is what's your intention? What is your desired outcome?
Yeah, because if you're going to set boundaries, you're going to know what's in your heart, not just your head, what's acceptable and what's not, and also being flexible. But, to avoid that, let's just go, what is it I want? Because often people go, I remember when I used to work in a shop, in a department store, and people would come in, they'd rant and rave, and it was a furniture store, and it was kitting out, it was kitchens and anything, it was a department store which had pretty much everything except clothes.
Right.
And people would come and go, my sofa hasn't arrived, and you said it would be, you personally said it would be.
You.
Yeah, me personally. Well, I wasn't there that day, and I don't do that, but that's okay. I'll take the brunt for that. But you'd say to them, what do you want? Like, what do you want? And they go, oh,
they hadn't thought of it. They just
no,
were angry.
Sometimes they just want to lose their their boundaries are shattered. They feel broken. There's something else going on in their world, and you're just happen to be the dog that they kick. But at the end of the day, if you don't know what you want, how the heck am I supposed to figure it out?
Well, and that is such an important piece around boundaries, because let's face it, things happen in this world that kind of tick us off. They're like,
lovely way of putting it. Dang it.
Dang it. But if we keep holding on to that and exacerbating it, then that's all that exists for us. Whereas
Yeah.
that's a beautiful question to pause somebody and say, so what is it you want? Like, this is obviously not your desired outcome, but what do you want? And
No.
sometimes people haven't given that any bandwidth. They're just like, I'm really pissed off about this not going the way I want it.
Yeah.
Right?
And I think about that, you know, and when you say, you know, what is it, what is the outcome it's like when somebody says to me, what's your price? And you might say, look, it's $500, and they're like, oh my God, that's ridiculous. And you're like, that's really cheap. But
Yep.
if they're looking at $10 to invest in something and you say 500, you are far left and far right. It's ridiculous. You're
Mhm.
so out of the so what do you desire? Because if you say to them, okay, do you want all your money back? Well, I don't know. Do you want free delivery? Do you want a discount?
Right. Yeah.
You're literally fishing to please them, but you don't even know what
What's
the
going to
heck.
make them happy?
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
might say, do you want free delivery, or, you know, do you want a discount? They're like, no. Okay, what do you want? Like you want to figure out what they want. But if you're selling a $500 program and someone's only got $50, there's a lot of movement that has to happen for that sale to go through. And I just do that because that just can relate to somebody. I wanted, you know, this dress that I just tried on's got makeup on it. Okay, so what do you want?
Right.
You know, unless you actually say, I want a discount, or I want this, or I want a new dress,
Mhm.
like the salesperson won't have any idea. So
Mm.
they're just little boundaries I've just said about clothes shopping and, you know, in a department store, but they're vital for everything, you know.
Yeah.
And if you don't know, and this is one that Moira got me on, and Moira's like, oh, what's this? One time she said to me, if you don't know what you want, what don't you want?
Yes.
And I remember, and that is so, and I was like, I've been doing this for how long? And I've never even thought about saying what. Of course, you know what you want. Of course, you know what you want is what I would say. Like, you know what you want, but
But
what don't you want? And then you can have an idea. And it's so much easier. It's like,
it makes,
woo.
yeah, it lightens things up. Because
Mm,
sometimes we do have to get really clear on all the things that we don't want. And say,
exactly.
okay, now I see it. That's what I want.
Yeah. Yeah. It just is such a simple questioning. Just often those simple questions are actually huge, big golden nuggets. So if you don't know what you desire, what don't you desire? Let's look at what that
Yeah.
is. But if you're going to set some boundaries to avoid overwhelm, or discombobulation, I think it's going to now be discombobulation. Yeah.
Discombobulation. Yep.
Yeah. If you're going to avoid that, then you're going to know what the heck you want,
Mhm.
because otherwise I'm just floundering here. I'm a fish out of water going flap, flap, and it's not pleasant.
Absolutely. So, you know, leading on from that, I think a priority tip of how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm is to ensure that your self-care is priority number one every single day. And that means, so whatever your self-care is, I like to think of it as sacred self-care. So I like to think of, and I referenced at the beginning of our conversation about the PEMS check-in that we talk about, you know, so your self-care needs to be, you need a component of looking after your physical body, your emotions, your mental, and your spiritual. And so you can actually do, like, you could go for a beautiful mindful walk, and actually you've then ticked all the boxes for that. Or you could do a
Yeah.
qigong practice or meditation practice or journaling. But it's very, very important to have that boundary around that time and that practice in order to engage with things that may create discombobulation or overwhelm, right?
Mm. Yeah, this all the tips we're going to give you are simple, but you've just got to use them.
Yes, yeah,
Just you got to use these, because these are things that we have worked for us. And if you've listened to us before, you know that word boundaries is one of my
one of her triggers. Actually, I was going to say that. How come? Explain how come that's an issue for you.
I don't know. I say I don't know.
I don't
Of course.
know.
There must be. I've not consciously looked at it, but I had to giggle because recently I employed someone new for social media, and I said, "Look, go to my YouTube, have a good check out there, and just pick a video and start doing it from there." That's where I was like. And anyway, the first week was all about boundaries, and I'm like, really? The one video out of my nearly 300 videos, you
That's the one.
one on boundaries, and away she goes. She goes, boundaries is great. Da, da, da. And I'm like, "Ugh." So it's definitely, I just had to giggle because it's softened. It's purely softened as every time I hear the word boundaries. I don't know where it comes from, but well, you can reframe. Somebody reframe boundaries for me, thanks. I've been asking it for years.
Well,
I think,
so you can say protective bubble.
yeah, there you go. Set your
Yeah.
protective. I love. Oh, that sounds way more
See?
cute.
Or you just got to be in your snow globe.
Oh yeah,
because that to
yeah.
me, that's a boundary, right? Is that I'm inside my own protective bubble of
And you
my
can
snow globe.
see that. You can see the snow globe.
Yeah, mine has purple sparkles in it.
I'm going to say, and Moira's would have, and mine would have red and gold in
Yes,
there.
yes.
Totally would. But I want to jump into the how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. I want to start with there's different levels of overwhelm. We talked about our PEMS, and our PEMS is a 10. When you're beyond a 10,
Mhm.
you're fully in the overwhelm. But an overwhelm can be a 1
Yeah,
when you're 1. So just so your PEMS for newbies, a PEMS is your physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And you just rate yourself on, okay, I've had a bit of a poor sleep, so I feel like I'm a bit of an 8 or a 7 or anything like that. You're emotional, you're mental, and
might be a bit cranky or something. Mhm.
yep. Something could be going on, and you may not even know exactly what it is. But when you get to that and you rate yourself, and it's just a little check in, you go, why am I so angry with the traffic today? God. And then you're like, oh, no wonder. I'm a 7. Well, okay. Knowing I'm a 7 out of 10, 10 being the completely discombobulated, I'll
Yep.
just slow down. I'll just do a bit more trust in there. So when we talk about our overwhelm can be a 1 or it can be a 10. And our overwhelm could be, oh, that bloomin', I've heard it again. Someone's also told me I need to listen to Moira and Deb. Heard it for the third time today. And so that could be a 1, but it could also be a 9. So it doesn't matter whatever scale you're on with that overwhelm, but acknowledge that number where you're at. Just acknowledge, okay, this is where I'm at, and now I can move through it. Because we all want to be SHA, seen, heard, acknowledged. And if you can see yourself, hear yourself, and acknowledge yourself. Moira said ensure that your self-care is number 1. If you can see yourself, hear yourself, and acknowledge yourself, you're already putting yourself as number 1.
Yep.
And then the action steps from that happen. So just be aware that that overwhelm could be a chaotic level or it could be a minor level, but it's still something to work through.
Yep. Do you know the thing that just landed for my in my awareness when you're talking about that seen, heard, and acknowledged? One of the pieces that I firmly believe is that at all times we are educating others how to treat us, how to respond to us, how to talk to us. And sometimes an overwhelming situation can come up where somebody's maybe yelling at you, or somebody's maybe being disrespectful or mean or
Yeah.
accusing you of something. To me, this piece around seen, heard, and acknowledged is I need to be seen, heard, and acknowledged, and so do they. But if I recognize that I have a boundary here that says you cannot speak to me in a derogatory way or disrespectful way or angry way, that's how come I have my snow globe visual, because it's like, yeah, you can just be talking away, but I'm not having it in my energy bubble, right? So it's very important to acknowledge that you can remove yourself from something that feels overwhelming. So it's like, that's one of my questions that I love to encourage people to use is, how do I feel about myself here? So how do I feel about myself here in this environment with these people, with this group, doing these things, talking about these things? And if I feel nervous or like there's something wonky here, I need to leave. I need to I can do it without physically having to leave by doing a visual of protecting. You can either do a protect from your solar plexus chakra. That's the chakra where we absorb judgment or negativity. So you want to protect that chakra. So you can do that by pretending there's a mirror in front of your solar plexus chakra. And so then so right there, that's a beautiful boundary. It's just an energetic one, right?
And I think yeah, and so today you might not feel comfortable with those people, but tomorrow you might.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's also that flexibility as well, not going, oh my God, I'm going to see that person every time and they're going to be horrible and whatever that is.
That
But
would be an assumption right there, right? So we don't do that. For agreement.
You'll know what happens with assumptions. Yeah, definitely. But I think knowing that you can do that, and then today might be different to tomorrow. Again, dealing with your pens.
Well, you see, a lot of this part about the idea of boundaries, and to your point, we are all moving targets. So what resonates and what feels okay energetically, give me an hour and it might be completely different. Next day can be completely different. So that's how come it's so important to show up and stay present to what is. How do I feel about myself right here? Not, tomorrow, or how did I feel about myself yesterday? No, how do I feel about myself right here, right now, with my bandwidth, with whatever level my physical, emotional, mental, spiritual well-being pillars are, right?
And I think it's time to celebrate that you've got something to work on.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's a low or a high or anything like that, but you actually must work on it because it's there presenting itself to you. So it's time to work on it. So celebrate that you've got something to work on. Celebrate that this thing's happened again. We're coming up to Christmas soon, and there's going to be some boundaries, some firm boundaries people are going to need to would be wise for them to set if they're going to avoid overwhelm.
Right. Which actually feeds into what I was going to suggest about always remember you have the right to say no.
That's how have we got all the way through this without
I know.
Yeah.
But that, and because, and the reason I was thinking that you're saying about Christmas coming, sometimes people can get too caught up in the have tos and the shoulds and the society says or protocol says.
Yeah,
But
society says you're supposed to have everybody, all your family members at Christmas. No, you don't like family members. Don't do it. Don't do it. But then you're going to upset all the family. And John D. Martini has made, we talk about universal laws. He made a universal law up called Law of the Lesser Pisses. And it's, and yes, I did say that word. And it's who are you going to PISS off the most?
Right.
And that's it. Because if you have an opportunity to go somewhere and you don't want to go, or you want to go there, but you're obligated to go somewhere else, you're not obligated. So who are you going to peeve off more? And that's it. But you're better, like going back to that Moira tip earlier, ensure your self-care is number one priority.
Absolutely. Yeah. And with this though, too, with this thing of saying no, you do have the right to say no, but there's something else in here too that I think is an important piece, is no doesn't mean never.
I was going to say no is how you say it. No.
No doesn't fit, right?
Yeah.
No, it just means energetically it's not vibing for me. It's not in alignment with my energy. Because here's the thing that I like to kind of reflect back to people when they're really stuck in the but I have to because I should, or the family dictate says, or
Yeah.
blah 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 blah.
Like that, isn't it? Yeah.
Think about if somebody came along to do something with you, like let's say you really wanted to go to some kind of outing, and somebody you invited somebody to come with you, and they really didn't want to go, but they didn't want to piss you off, so they kind of sucked it up, clenched their fists, gritted their teeth, and went along with you.
Yeah.
How would you feel if you had somebody in that state coming along just to keep you happy or just because society says or the rule book says, how would you feel about that?
That would be horrid.
Wouldn't
Horrid.
it? Wouldn't it?
Horrid.
I would
You'd
feel
feel-
so upset if I found out that somebody literally parked
Yeah.
all of their own desires and no, I better do that for Moira because she'll be upset if I don't. Like, well, no, you're actually upsetting me more because I found out that you only did it because of
By
some weird
obligation
idea.
or
Yeah,
friendship.
obligation or have to or should or yeah.
You don't want any of your friends or family or you don't want anyone doing something they don't want to do. Like
Yeah.
you don't. And yes, it may be convenient for you, but that energy they're putting into that, if they go, the amount of times couples have gone, oh, I have to go to this thing, you have to come with me. I don't want to go. When you go and you take a partner, they don't want to be there. You spend all your time seeing if they're okay.
Yeah.
Are they okay? And you're not present, so you better not to. And I'm gonna say this very firmly. You better to leave your partner at home if it's not their jam.
Yep.
That's it. Don't
100%.
force them to do something because no partner wants to go through obligation. Oh, you supported me, so I have to go. No. You just go. Go do your thing and be phenomenal, and I'll do mine wherever that is.
But think about it, about how energy draining it is if you suddenly realize that this person that you're supposedly enjoying something with and they're sitting there huffing and puffing and rolling their eyes and thinking, tapping their fingers and is it done yet? Is it done yet?
Yeah, well, I think I've talked about this with many people, and you're right. Is it done? Is it done? Is it done? When you're in an intimate relationship or in a business situation, you don't all have to step up at once. You don't have to, no matter what. And it's about you having your thing, they having their thing, and then you have something together. It's not just, and because that is a much more fulfilling relationship. And that's
functional. It's functional.
That's right. And that's at business too. And business colleagues, it feels more human and real and authentic and genuine. Yeah.
Well, it really then does really allow you to say, I get to do this. I love to do this. I choose to do this. And it doesn't matter if that's your personal interactions or your professional. You want that energy. That's what's going to, so that's a boundary aspect too, is to watch your own dialogue about how you're looking at the to-do list. Oh, I have to do this. I have to do this. I should do this. Well, let's see, unpack some of the things that you might have missed. Your own setting a boundary around what you need for your own well-being and your own sense of creative flow, right?
And overwhelm can just be how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. It can just be writing down all the things you've got to do that day, brain dumping what has to be done and what's in the way of getting this done. My mother, my boyfriend, the cat, like it could be what's in the way of getting those things done, and work through those obstacles, because they're not really boundaries, they're just alertnesses. Is that such a word?
No, but it is now.
It is now. It's alertnesses. But it's just showing you that there's something there.
And I always think of when you say about the brain dump, because I think that's a really important part. But even by listing things out, then you can bring in your 4Ds, right?
The 4Ds.
Dump it, delegate it,
do it, defer it.
There you go.
A quick wee message before we get back to this episode. You can get access to a special gift Moira and Debz have put together for you. Go to deliciouslymotivatedmindset.com/gift. When you sign up, you'll receive instant access to an inner peace kit and the 30 Days of Wisdom program, both of which is intended to help you feel deliciously motivated right away. Go to deliciouslymotivatedmindset.com/gift.
Yeah.
I don't always remember all of them, but I think that's a really important part. In fact, that would be an important part around boundaries too.
Well, that's an
right?
overwhelm as well, either with boundaries or overwhelm. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, because once you've done your brain dump, then you can sometimes doing the brain dump, you can realize, oh gosh, I had it in my head that this task had to be done today, but it actually doesn't. It's not due till next week.
That's the funny thing when you actually start look, because when you've got in your head and your head, when you got in your head, it's all around, all around, all around, all around. La, 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 la. But
Yep.
in reality, when you get it all out, you're like, oh, that's only gonna be a 2-minute job, not
Right.
a
Like,
4-hour
gosh, I've
job.
made up a huge story about that one.
That's right. And so when you're breaking that down, that overwhelm just becomes explosive. You're like, oh, I've got so much to do, so much to do. And it's like, well, what do you have to do? I don't know. Well, let's get it all out. And you
Right.
start, you're like, oh, it's actually not as bad as what I thought.
Yeah.
And then when you do it, it's nowhere near as bad as what you thought doing it either happens, because our mind runs a marathon.
Yep.
Our mind runs a marathon, and it runs very fast, faster than anyone who's got a limp.
But that's like the crazy making thinking. It's like creating stories out about things, right?
Yeah.
So it's about, what going into 4 agreements. Yeah, that's what you just did. You poured out your
I
four
just
agreements
just
cards.
pulled out my programs. I thought I'm going to mention them, and I get them all around the wrong way. So I'm like, I'm going to pull these out. Yep.
But you see, when your mind's running a marathon, you can sometimes be completely ignoring the simplicity of the 4 agreements, right? So the 4 agreements are be impeccable with your word. Well, if you're going, oh my God, I don't have enough time in the day and I have to do this and I have to do this, I have to do that. Well, you're not really being impeccable with your inner word, with your inner dialogue.
And I think that's important. So even if you're thinking it, it's still a word you say to
Oh
yourself.
yes, when in these 4 agreements, when you're saying be impeccable with your word, we're talking about thoughts also. It's not just let the words coming out your mouth, because if it's a thought in your head, it's a word, like, and put quotations around it. It's your word. So being impeccable with your word means that you're talking to yourself and about yourself with kindness and compassion and acceptance, and knowing that you're always doing your best, which is actually agreement number 4, to always do your best. And the ones in the middle are to never take things personally. That's, how I said earlier about we educate people how to treat us. And so that one's a really important one to remember. If somebody's angry, they're angry, and say they're yelling at you or around you. It's not about you. It's about that person. And so don't take it personally, because you can say, okay, I educate people how to talk to me, and I can't be available for that. And then the other one is to not make assumptions. Is you referenced that a moment ago. That's what actually made me think of it, right?
Yeah.
Oh, it's always going to be like this because this is how it went last time. Yeah, but
Yeah.
not.
Always, 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 always. Yeah.
Always, or everybody.
Everybody thinks like that. No, they don't.
Nope.
No, they don't. The 4 agreements are just so basic, yet so powerful. And even if you just do one of them, like be impeccable with your word.
Yeah.
If you can just do one, be impeccable with your word, it literally your word to yourself and others. And I know Moira said that, but really emphasize anything that you think about is part of your word.
Yeah. It is.
Whether it comes out verbally, energetically, it's all part of that. The 4 agreements are just a surprise it took so long for them to come up this long in the podcast.
In our conversation, I know, because they often come earlier. But actually, talking about surprise tips that didn't come out earlier, the other one here I think is really important about this whole idea around how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm is to trust you, to trust that you've got the energy, the resilience, the capacity, the confidence, the courage, the tenacity, whatever it is that's needed to navigate through discombobulation or overwhelm. Or sometimes we need to just press pause for a moment and say, okay, today's step or today's action is going to be this tiny, tiny, tiny baby step. And if
Yeah.
that's where you're at, that's great. Tell yourself the truth and trust that as I engage with this, that I will find my flow. And that in itself dissipates overwhelm. Does that make sense?
Does. And one of my favorite sayings when Moira says, trust is an inside job. It's all back to you. Whether you
Yeah.
want to hear that or not, people, it's all back to you. It's all you all the way along. It's all you. But I think with that trust goes another one I just want to say is be aware of your past history, stories, emotions, because they're when somebody's done something to us, we store it until we emotionally clear it, clearly. So just be aware of those things. Oh, I remember this happening to me when I was 10 and now I'm never going to trust again. Or I remember this happening to me when I was 10 and I got told off from mum and dad, or any of those things. So just be conscious of your past stories, that those stories who you were when you were 10 do not have to come into the new world of where you are at 50 or 30 or 40. If that, so just be aware of your emotions attached to your past stories.
That's such an important tip, actually, Deb, because that actually makes me like that. If you're getting stuck in the, oh, this happened when I was 10, so therefore it's going to keep happening, that's actually not being impeccable with your word.
No, and there's no trust, and there ain't
No,
no jumping.
no. That's your mind running a marathon, as you say.
Yeah, and it is. But you're right, be impeccable with you. So don't make assumptions. All men are going to do this. All female bosses are going to do this.
Yeah.
Don't make
Yeah.
assumptions, and that goes back to the emotions you've attached to that past story.
Mhm. So to your point, be aware of those past experiences, because sometimes having that awareness can inform you of something, but it's so important to also stay present to what is. So you might have a reaction of, oh, that person looks like the person who beat me up,
Yeah.
20 years ago. Okay, but stay present.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes
Just
by
because they've got a
staying,
blue shirt and a blue jeans, it does not
yeah,
necessarily mean they're the same person. But it is. It's a trigger, and it's a beautiful time to celebrate that there's something to go on and work through it.
yes, yeah. And have, so it's to have a sense of, oh, what do I get to discover? Because there's the other part too that I think is really important with helping to avoid overwhelm is that every situation we are in, regardless if we can actually see our way through it or not, there is no way we would be there if we could not deal with it.
Mm. Yeah, I truly believe the universe is not going to give you a challenge if you can't.
No,
Not going to give you a challenge that you can't handle.
no,
I truly think that. Yeah.
100%, because I've said that before. We do not live in a punishing universe. So
Yeah.
it's about acknowledging that, and that's, so this is the piece around trust that I like to think about too, and I know that it's helped me a lot in my own life. Is I've been through rough stuff, and just because I can't see my way through doesn't mean that it's not there. So I'm just going to trust that it'll evolve, that it'll flow, that it'll show up, that I'll recognize it. And then maybe there's something really tiny. Maybe I can just write it down.
Mm.
Right?
I've just gone on a whole tangent. My mind has just run a marathon just listening to
Oopsie.
Moira. So, and I know we've got to wrap up. Got to or
Mhm.
to. I don't choose to. I choose to. I don't love to wrap up, but we'll just do this. So we're going to wrap up. We're going to
Rev
wrap
up.
our how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. So grab your note-taking device,
Oh
and we're
yeah,
going
I didn't say that at the beginning. Oh dear.
Oh yeah, bad. You're a
Bad
bad
me.
person. Bad. Uh-oh, we've all failed. Here we go. Yeah. How to set boundaries. I have to remind her how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. And I love how Moira said how to set your protective bubble or your
Yeah.
snow globe to avoid overwhelm. So we'll just reframe that for
We'll
Deborah's
just do that
purpose.
one.
Yep, that's it. So grab that note-taking device because we're going to sum up our podcast into quick tips.
This is the Cole's Notes version.
That's it. Insert evil life here. So one of them, the tip Moira started with was actually connect energetically to your heart.
Mhm.
That was from our heart coherent exercise at the very start. So when you're connecting energetically to your heart over your head, things flow differently. They're not forced. It just feels like you're on a beautiful transition or a journey, and it just allows things to move and not get as stuck.
Yep, definitely.
Coming up Moira's words. Okay, perfect. Right.
Definitely. Love that. And that was the other thing that I had said, is that helps calm your nervous system, which actually then
Yes.
can diffuse any sense of overwhelm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
The
Perfect.
next one I noted down was yours is to check in. What's your intention? What's the outcome you want? And to stay flexible, but to have a sense of, because that's when you were telling the stories of when you worked in the department store, people coming in and ranting and raving because something's not working out. It's like, yes, so but what do you want? Right?
That literally just diffuses that whole chaotic frustration. If you're working if you're working in a sales role or anything and saying with somebody, what do you want?
Yeah.
You're like, and thought about that. It's like, okay, right, we'll continue yelling at me.
Let's start contemplating that.
And I love that Moira also says, if you don't know what you desire, what don't you want?
Yeah. Do it by process of elimination sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The next tip is to ensure your self-care is number one priority. Now, that self-care is whatever works for you at the time. I talk about my glitter bomb. Moira has a self-care soothing kit that when things wobble, she just goes straight to that and she knows exactly what to do.
Yeah.
Whether it's hand on heart, stand outside, whether it's do a meditation, whether it's
Do
shuttle
a
social
breathing technique. Yeah. Social media turns off. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Put the phone. Go give Princess a kiss.
Yeah. That's my cat, by the way.
I was just going to say we need to do that. Mine would be Ben or Finn, and you'd be lucky to get a kiss out of them unless they coming up. So ensure that your self-care is your number one priority.
Absolutely.
And this is where we also talked about our PEMs, our physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Keep doing those because they grind us back to our heart. Again, connect energetically to our heart.
The whole piece around the self-care is, I like to say to my clients, is that it's essential to fill your cup and keep filling it to overflowing so that you give and are of service from sharing from your saucer, not your cup. And so that means that you have a ever-flowing, abundant energy. And that's a beautiful way to set boundaries and avoid overwhelm is
I've seen that overflowing from the cup. So you're actually giving from the saucer, not the cup. I love
that's right. Yeah. I love that analogy, and I think it's such an important piece because you don't want to be giving away your life force energy, which is what we're refilling when we fill our cup, right?
Yeah.
The next one I have is about this is a point that Deb often brings into our conversations about we all need to be seen, heard, and acknowledged. But it's so important in this conversation, you must see, hear, and acknowledge yourself. Right. So that's a beautiful one to come on the heels of what we were just talking about the self-care, because sometimes we need a wee bit longer on certain practices. If we're feeling a little bit emotional or feeling a little bit down, or then we need a little bit more, and it's okay. So it's see, hear, and acknowledge, oh, I'm feeling like I just need a little bit of a longer meditation or a bit more of a time with my journal or whatever it is that you're doing, a wee bit longer of a walk or something, right?
And I think well, I'm going to bring in two here. one was be flexible, because knowing that, with that seen, heard, acknowledged, we're all moving targets.
Yeah.
So nothing's permanent. Nothing is
Yep.
permanent with that.
Mm.
But the next one I have, which I just love when Moira says it, was how do I feel about myself here?
Yeah.
And I've got it literally on a little post-it note, a pink post-it note. How does this info make me feel about me when something's said to me or something? And I love that. How do I feel about myself here? And Moira talked about protecting the chakra. You do what works for you. And so if it doesn't feel right, you can change at any time.
Yeah.
This goes back to that being flexible. We're all moving targets. You don't have to go. You have to stay in a situation that feels uncomfortable. You don't have to be spoken to in a way that feels uncomfortable for you. Like there's nothing in the world that you need to stay in front if it does not make you feel comfortable.
Yep. And do you know, that's actually how come you and I keep having these conversations and keep talking and evolving our tips and our ideas and suggestions, is because there is not one technique that suits every scenario. Right?
You're right. You're right. Pick one today out of these and go with it. And then
Yeah.
when you're ready to move another one in, move it and move one out if you need to. You're right. It
Yeah.
is not, everything is moving, and you're moving with it, people. Whether you
Yep.
got it, whether you like it or not, you're moving with it. Yeah.
So remember to say, I get to move with it.
Yeah.
Not dragging me
A
along.
bloody choice. Moira and Deborah are pushing me, and away I go down. Yes, yes, yes.
Absolutely. The next one that I have written down here was that remember, and this is an important piece around setting boundaries, is remember that you have the right to say no. And that also remember that no doesn't mean never. But this is such an important piece to not be dragged along by something that because I have to, because I should, because they say so, because fill in the blank. That in itself energetically does cause overwhelm, right?
Yep.
So remember, you do have the right to say no. And there are some beautiful, kind, loving ways to say no, not at this time. Or no, that just doesn't work for me. You can say it without it having to be a no, get the hell away from me kind of. It's not that vibe, right?
I'm also going to say you don't have to make an excuse. You don't have to make it. If you don't feel like, you don't have to, because sometimes making an excuse, you feel like, oh, I've got to lie, I don't want to upset. So just say, this doesn't work for me right now. That's it. You don't have to go, oh, I've got something else on, or this doesn't work, or I don't agree with you, or like, you don't have to do no excuses with when you say no.
Excuses tend to dilute it and make you feel less than, like you have to explain away why it's not okay for you. So perhaps when you need to say no, it's time to put your hand on your heart, take a deep breath, and then say, no, it just doesn't work for me. That's it.
That's it. I did a pitch to a lady, and it was quite a high profile pitch recently, and she just came back and she just said, it's just not right now. Thanks very much.
Right.
That was it. Done. There was no come back to me in a month's time. It was just no, not right now. And it was just a beautiful way of just going, no, shut it down. That's it. And I know where she is. Like, but it was just, it felt authentic because she didn't have to lie. She didn't have to say in it. It's just like, no, not right now.
So she was certain that she had the right to do that, and there was like, that was it. Didn't have to give any explanation or excuses.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It just felt really authentic.
Yeah, good.
I've got one just before that one, and that was celebrate. Celebrate that you've got something to work on. And I think that's something. Yeah, I think we forget to celebrate. Celebrate we've got something to work on, because if you're not working on anything, you're pretty much stagnant.
Yeah, we are all works in progress after all, right?
We've got a gazillion things to work on, so don't hide, but celebrate there's something to work on.
Yeah.
And put the time aside to do that. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice. I like that. The next one I have is brain dump. You and I, we have this favorite one. So if you're starting to feel overwhelmed, like, oh my God, there's not enough hours in the day and I have to do this and this and this and this and this, write it all down. Write it all down. And I like what you said with this is write it all down and then see what's the obstacle, like what's the story, what's the reasoning. And then I had suggested to bring in Deb's 4Ds. Once you've written everything down that's in your head of all the have tos, because sometimes you find out that, oh gosh, I don't have to do this because I don't need to do it until next week.
Yeah.
So you look and you can just assess. Do you need to defer things? Do you need to say, nope, not doing that, delete? Do you need to delegate it or dump it?
Yeah.
Right?
And I love that. And we talked a little about the language. I get to do this. I choose to do this. I love to do this. And that dialogue you have with yourself. So that's a beautiful one. When you're doing the 4Ds and you're looking at, then you're strategizing what obstacle is going to get in the way. And you work through that, go, oh, I choose to do this, or I get to do this.
Yeah.
I'd love to do this, or I have the opportunity to do this. It's just a little flick in your mind of that language that you say to yourself.
Yep. But it feels light. It's lightening, right?
But you can't say that with your shoulders down.
No.
Get to do. You can't. Well,
Yeah,
it feels
you
wrong.
can, but it doesn't feel right.
No, it feels like you got to choose your words carefully.
Yep.
And what we're showing you is how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. Is be certain, and there's a tip. Be
There's a
certain.
tip yeah. Have some certainty in that.
Yeah. Person with the
Definitely.
most certainty rules the game.
Yes, you've said that before. It's very true.
Yeah.
Is it my turn? I think it's my turn, isn't it?
I think it's your turn. Yeah. give it
I
through.
think because it's trust is my favorite. Trust is an inside job. Trust. So I like to say trust is an inside job, but always if certain situations are feeling overwhelmed, remind yourself how tough, how resilient, how capable, how courageous you are, and that you are always in any situation you can get through it. I firmly believe that. Everything, even if you cannot see it, it's to just say trust. Nice deep breath. I've got my hand on my heart, and then things shift. Once we shift our energy, the energy around us shifts too.
Oh, I know that's one of the things. So you're the bottleneck in your own world, by the way, people.
Yes. Yep.
One of the ones that I thought that Moira forgot, and I'm going to say Moira forgot, which is, I'm very surprised she forgot it, the 4 agreements.
Oh, I didn't do it in the recap. It's because they're just pervasive and I didn't even write it down.
Everyone, the 4 agreements. And this is great. Also back to your words to yourself, but also to others.
Mhm.
Be impeccable with your word.
Yeah. And
Don't
your
take
thoughts.
Yeah. Don't take anything personally.
Mhm.
Don't make assumptions that we're going to finish on time. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best.
Always do your best.
And when you get into the flow of those things, it just flows. So even if you just picked one of those to start with, just start with it.
Yeah.
But with your word, don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions, and always do your best.
Yep. Simple and powerful agreements that you can make you to you. That's actually a really beautiful piece around boundaries.
Yeah. Simple.
Yep.
I have one more at the very end before we sign off. Mine's just, no, Moira's like looking at me. Mine is be aware of your emotions to your past stories.
Yeah. And I had that written down, and because I that was the one you said. Absolutely. Be aware of it. Don't get stuck there.
Stay present to what is what.
That's what I had said. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Because these emotions are there to alert us to things to work on. So just celebrate them, work on that. And I'm going to reiterate what Moira said before with that trust is the universe doesn't challenge you for something you can't handle.
Yeah.
So have we covered everything here today? I think
I'm sure we could start this whole thing again and come up with a whole different set of tips.
I think we could. But for time-wise purposes, we will wrap that up. And that was our podcast on how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm.
Mm-hmm.
So when we think of this, I would like you now to shut your eyes and just take a moment. And everyone, like, apart from if you're driving.
Yeah, don't do it if you're driving.
Just shut your eyes, and we shared some tips, and put your hand on your heart, and we shared some tips on how to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm. I want you to think of that one particular tip that really resonated with you, whether that's connecting energetically to your heart, what you desire, saying no, celebrating, brain dumping, whatever that tip was that really landed for you. I want you to put that in your heart and think about that. And I'd love you to implement that over the next 24 hours. Really focus on that. Whatever that
Beautiful.
is for you,
Mhm.
focus on that and just allow that to be. And then start thinking about the other ones that we've shared. And if you can do this over the next 7 days before our next podcast comes out, you can think about this. You've taken 7 tips and you've just implemented them day by day by day.
Yeah.
7 back into your world that is going to help you move through how to set those boundaries to avoid the overwhelm. So I'd love to thank you for joining us here today for our deliciously motivated mindset conversation with Debz, that would be me, and Moira,
That would be me.
her. That would be her. So we trust that you got some golden nuggets today. So if you like this, I'm going to give you the next step. Not only just what I gave you, but the next step is actually share this with somebody you care about and
Mhm.
open a discussion. Open a discussion with them and what feels right for you. So that's us signing off. Thank you very much for coming. How to set boundaries to avoid overwhelm with Debz and Moira. Have an inspiring week, and you will listen to us in another 7 days when the next podcast comes out.
Next episode. Yes. Thank you, dear Deb. Thank you, Internet.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you, listeners. Bye.